Alright, so let's get started with closures. I'm actually going to do a couple of videos about closures just because I really need to practice them, and it was kind of hard really to wrap my brain around closures. Yes, closures are really similar to functions, but at the same time they are different. Like the syntax is definitely different. And trying to get used to the syntax, I just needed to really practice it. And some of the stuff that I found was really great. Other stuff didn't really go into much detail, so I kind of experimented a little bit. So hopefully you like it. So let's get started. In this video, I'm going to cover closure expression syntax and also inferring the type for its parameters and returns. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of a longhand here, where you get to kind of see how closures are pretty similar to functions, but also some differences too. And then with the inferring portion, I will be kind of refactoring what I wrote above so you can see the difference. And it is a huge difference in some respect. So what are closures? Basically, they're like functions, exactly what they are, but they are, I kind of wrote up here, they're a discrete bundle of functionality. How they differ is that they are more compact, more lightweight. They allow you to write basically a function, but without giving it a name. And so that's really the huge difference between the two, is more compact, more concise, has no name. Or a function declaration. Like with functions, we have the function name, when we have the function keyword, the name, and then the declaration, all its parameters, its types, all its returns, its types. So this functionality will allow us to, with closures, to make it a lot easier to work with the functionality that we build in it. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So with closures, instead of doing function keyword, I'm actually going to assign this to a variable. So I'm going to do var. Alright, and the first thing I'm going to do is a closure that has no return type or no parameters. So I'm just going to write it exactly that for the variable name. Okay. So now I'm going to declare this closure's types and its parameters and its return types. Now the thing is, because this has no parameters or return types, what do we put? Well, with functions, remember, we had a function that had no parameters or no returns. We just did empty parentheses. Same thing applies. We just do empty parentheses. Then our little arrow says it has no returns. What do? Empty parentheses. Alright, so now that we've given this variable its type, which has nothing, now we do the closure. So we do our equal sign, curly brackets. So this is the syntax up here that I was referring to, is the curly brackets. Now, since we know it has no parameters or return types, the only thing we do is enter code statements. So in order to output something, I'm just going to do a print statement. I'm just going to put, I have no parameters or return values, so I print. Alright. So actually what I should do is have another little note up here with nothing, and it's just bracket, bracket, and then some code statements. So that's the syntax for when it has nothing at all. So no parameters, no return values. Alright, now let's see if this works. So we'll do no parameter return, and since let's scroll over this to see what it is. It's a closure. So it recognizes it's a closure, and like functions, in order to call a function and have it perform or do its work, whatever is inside of its functionality, we do parentheses. So same deal, do parentheses, and sure enough, it will output our print statement that we gave it down here in our debug area. All right, so let's do one that has just a return. So do var no parameter and do one return. Same deal, we're going to do our colon. So since we have no parameters, we do empty curly, empty parentheses, a little arrow. And now that we've given it we're going to give it a return, we're going to do, let's just do a string. Okay, and then do our equal sign, our curly brackets. So now we get an error. Well, what is this wonderful error it's telling us? Well, it's saying missing return in a closure expected to return string. So that's exactly what we do. We're going to return a string. So I'm a string. So we're returning a string. So now we have no errors. And then if we call this, or parentheses, and you see I'm a string. All right, so the next example I'm going to do is a closure with one parameter and a return. Oh my goodness, if I can actually type this morning. It's morning for me, sorry. All right, so we're going to have a parameter come in. So in order to do so, we need to get defined its type. So I'm going to do string again. I'm going to have it output a string. Then we do our equal sign, our curly brackets. And so here's where the syntax we follow up here. So we have to give the parameter a name in order to work with this. So I'm going to just do name. And then we're going to say return a string. And then we use our keyword in. And then we type out our return. And I am just going to do hi. And then we'll just concatenate name onto that. All right, let's see if this works. Oops. So we do one parameter and return. Now we have to enter in our string because we have one parameter in there. Let's do fill. It says hi, Phil. So there we go. So it definitely works. So my next one I'm going to do is one that has multiple parameters, and one return. So again, we do a parentheses for parameters, and now we list out the types for each of the parameters that we're going to input. So we'll do string and string, and this return type is going to be a string. We'll do equal sign, curly brackets, and now we have to give the two strings that are coming in nicknames so that we can work with them. So I'm going to do first name, so doing parentheses, and then last name, our arrow, string, in, as our keyword. And then I'm going to basically, I'm just going to do a variable. I'm going to go to full name, which equals the first name. Oops. I'm going to concatenate the first name and last name so it's has, So it's that it combines, becomes the full name, last name, and then I will return the full name. Now you could definitely shorten this up and just, you know, completely not have full name there. You could just drag all this down and put that into the return. But I kind of wanted to show you, just do some, you know, type of computation in there, just because. All right, so let's see how this looks. So now we have to have first name and last name, right? So I do Phil. Let's do Schmidt. And sure enough, there's the full name, Phil and Schmidt. Okay. All right, so the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to do one parameter and multiple returns. Okay. We do our colon. And actually, I'm going to do an example that I did, or that I worked in one of my function videos, where the function took in an array of numbers and outputted a tuple that sorted that array with even and odd numbers. You had two arrays coming out, one that contained all the numbers from the array that was brought in that was all even numbers, and the other part that had all all odd numbers. So same deal. If you want to go back and find that video, you can. But I want to kind of use something that I've already developed before, that I've already worked with. So in this case, I'm going to define what's coming in. So I'm going to do brackets for an array, and it's going to be of type int, and it's going to output a tuple that contains two arrays of type int. So we'll do bracket int, comma, square bracket int. All right, do our equal sign, and then our curly brackets. And so now I'm going to have to give, of course, the array that's coming in a name, so we can work with it. So I'm going to call it numbers, and it's going to output our return of arrays. Okay, then we do our in keyword. And now let's go ahead and give some functionality to this closure. So I'm going to create two variables, one to hold the arrays that are the numbers that are even. I'm going to get it all ready to go and usable. We'll do odd. Okay, and then I want to loop through the array that comes in. So I'm going to use a for in loop. So for number in numbers, do brackets, and here I'm going to do a shortened version, a shorthand version of an if statement. So for number that comes in, if it's divisible by 2 evenly, so if the number modulus 2 equals 0, but I want it to append to my even numbers. So we do even number, do question mark, even number array, and then append the number. Otherwise, if it's not divisible by 2, then it's an odd number. So we'll just do odd number array and then append that number there. And now we, of course, have our little error. What's our error? Well, hey, we specified that we wanted to return, but we're missing a return. So let's count for that. Let's do a return. In this case, we're going to, again, return 2 arrays of type int, which we defined up here. So we're going to bring in the even number array and the odd number array. So we satisfy that requirement that we specified. Let's see how this works. I'm going to do one parameter, multiple return on our parentheses, and then I'm just going to plug in an array. I'm not going to create a variable and bring another variable. You can do that if you want. Go ahead and try it. Still works. I'm just doing this for the simplicity's sake. So I'm just going to type in some numbers here. Alright, so 1 through 9 and 1 through 10. As you see, it has sorted all the even numbers and all the odd numbers. I'm going to add one more just to have fun, so they're nice and even, both sides. Alright, now how do I pull out the even number or odd numbers? Well, we can do dot notation or indexing. So the 0 would be the even numbers. And you see, there's the even numbers, and 1 would be the odd numbers. Now, if you don't want to use 1 or 0, well, what can we do? Well, we can definitely name our return values. So we're going to name the first array of integers even and the second one odd. So now we can use these nicknames instead of .0, .1. So it's even, those are even numbers, and odd are odd numbers. So bam, awesome. Alright, so now the thing about closures is basically to make them more compact and lightweight. So I'm going to refactor all of these that I've just done so that it's more compact. Because right now it's not. I mean, we have our declaration, then we have our closure, and we declare it again. So let's make it more closure-like. So actually, instead of rewriting these variable names, I'm just going to copy them so that we can see the difference between them. So let's do the first one, which is no parameters or returns. And because we don't want to reuse the variable names, because Swift wouldn't be very happy with us, we're going to just do _I so we know that we're inferring. Or you can rename them entirely, up to you. Okay, so instead of doing the declaration, the full function declaration that I did above, I'm just going to jump right into the closure. So how do I do that? Well, I completely forego the colon or anything. I just type in a equal sign, curly brackets. That's it. So as you see, Swift is smart enough to realize, okay, right now there is no parameters or no return types. And that's exactly what we want. So we're just going to do our print statement. So I'm just going to do I'm inferring. And let's print this out. Let's see what this looks like. All right, if I can spell. So I'm inferring. Sure enough, down here, you see that this does work, even with inference, and it's a lot prettier than our previous one up here. There's no need for all of this. Okay, so let's do the second one, which is here. So I'm going to do no parameters, one return. Var, paste that, but give it a different name. And again, we're going to do the equal sign in the curly brackets. And so how do I do this? Well, there's no reason to use in, so we're going to kind of follow this format up here, but instead of doing print, we're going to actually do a return. So we're going to return I'm returning and inferring. No parameter, one return. You can see, there we go, has a return. And if you notice, it completely inferred. Swift was smart enough to say, okay, this closure is returning a string, so I'm going to assume that this is going to be this declaration. All right, so let's do the next one. Did that one. I'm going to do this one here. Do var, paste that, indicate that it's inferring example, or our curly brackets. So we're going to bring in a parameter and a return. So instead of writing all that out, what we're going to do is do this. It's the syntax that I have written in the notes above, where we have the name that we can work with, because we have to work with the parameters that come in. So we're going to give it a nickname, and we're going to define that it's going to be a string. We do our arrow brackets, or our arrow, and then we're going to specify, okay, we're going to output a string as well. And then this is where we use the end keyword. So I've completely I've completely done away with everything that I had put on the left side of the equal sign. But at the same time, we kind of still have to say, okay, it will have a parameter, it's going to be of type string, and it will have an output, a return value of type string. So right now it's showing that it's has no parameters or no return types, even though we defined it. But once we start entering in what we're going to be doing, because we're going to have to do a return type, right? It will get that we are doing something. So I'm going to do hi. And then I'm just going to do concatenation with the name, so we show that we're kind of using it. All right, now you see it's changed. Okay, since it has some code in order to reference what I've typed here, it's saying string is brought in, and then I'm going to output a string. And let's experiment with that. So I'm going to bring in a name. Let's do Bobby. And sure enough, there you go, hi Bobby. So it definitely works, even though it's a lot shorter. Okay, so let's see, the other one I was doing, we'll do the multiple parameters and then one return. So we do var, we'll paste that in underscore I, equal sign, into our curly brackets. So now we're going to bring in multiple parameters. So just like we did, we're going to have to give the first parameter a name so that we can work with it. We're going to define its type. And then we're going to do the second parameter and also define its type. And we're going to say we do want to return. So we'll do our arrow, and we want to return a string. End keyword. C is right now, it's empty because there's nothing inside, there's no code in order to work with it, but once we enter that in, we will see. So we're going to return, and now I'm going to shorten it. I think in the above example I did a variable inside full name and added in. I'm just going to do the add right here inside the return. You don't have to if you don't want to. All right, so let's test this one. Do the inferring version. Remember, we do our parentheses, and now we need to bring in two parameters. So we're going to do first name, last name. We're going to do Bobby Smith. And sure enough, it concatenated. So that's the full name. So there we go, and it's a lot shorter. You know, we have it, 2 lines here. Or before, I think we have like 4. Yeah. A lot of writing. All right, so for the last example, I'm going to refactor the closure that sorts through an array. I'm going to give it an I, so we can work with it and have it not freak out. Okay, so same deal here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in two, no, actually bring in one, bring in one array, work with it, output two arrays, right? So we're going to do a parentheses, and I'm going to name it numbers, we did before, and then we're going to say this is going to be an array of integers, so square brackets, and the output is going to be a tuple. So it's going to be two returns. So both of type int again, in keyword. All right. So right now, of course, it shows there's nothing in there because we haven't given any, I don't have any code in there. And I'm actually just going to copy all this that I've written up here. It's the same functionality. Okay. All right, let's see if this works. So we do one parameter multiple return I, and so we're going to bring in an array. So I'm just going to type some numbers in. Okay, a little bit different. Right. As you see, sure enough, it sorts it and everything, which is great. Let's see what the even numbers look like. Those are the even. And now we kind of have the same problem we did above with the dot syntax of 0, 1 doesn't really help us out any. Well, we can give our returns names as well. So we do even, odd, and now instead of using dot 0, we can do dot even. Wow, there you go. Dot odd. There's odd numbers. All right, so we've covered inferring. Well, we've covered the closure expression syntax for closures. The really long version that's we kind of mimic a little bit of building out a function, but in a closure kind of variety. But then we refactored it so that Swift can infer our types. We don't have to do as much typing. And as you can see with this multiple return one, the array here where it sorts, this is a lot cleaner. If you look at this in comparison to the one I did above here, it's a lot cleaner because we've completely done away with all of this in the beginning of the parenthesis or on the left side of the equal sign. All right, so hopefully this has helped you. My next video will be covering shorthand, gosh, I can't speak right now. I'll be doing shorthand, parameter names, shorthand parameter names, and capturing values with closures. So hopefully you'll jump into that video. If you like this video, if it's helped you, please subscribe or like. All right, till next time.